Yeah. So, all right, let's hang out here for a second. Let's give it a couple minutes to do its little ramp up.
Okay,
I don't
so
know. I don't know why it does that.
we're not chit-chatting yet
Oh,
officially.
we're chit chatting, and then we're not doing the podcast just
Okay,
yet.
so we're chit-chatting. So how you doing, Ethan?
I'm pretty good. How you doing, Elizabeth?
It's good. It's good to be in the inner sanctum of the Product Association Los Angeles podcasting headquarters.
Oh, it's pretty awesome right here in sunny Manhattan Beach, California.
Oh my God, the view that we have in here is amazing. It's absolutely phenomenal. Great to be here.
You can almost see Hawaii. It's pretty amazing.
I can see Catalina, and then I think I see Hawaii peeking over the outside there. Yeah. Who would know? Sunny product management, Los Angeles.
That's awesome. All right, let's do one of these, and then go silent, and I'll jump into it. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the Product in LA podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Cole, and this is an opportunity to shine the spotlight on some of the exceptional technology leaders we have as part of the LA community. With us today is Elizabeth Osder.
Hey,
Really excited to have you here, Elizabeth.
it's good to be here.
It's going to be a great one. I'm excited for this one. But first, a word from our sponsors. Product in LA is brought to you by Uruit, available at uruit.com. Need help completing your roadmap items? Uruit is a digital product development agency with over 15 years of experience helping companies build web and mobile apps by embedding directly into their Scrum teams. Uruit's expert full-stack software developers provide quality code to help you get the job done. If you need React or Angular front-end devs, or perhaps help with Node.js, .NET, Python development, DevOps, or even product or design to help solidify requirements, they're ready to help you close out features and actually release updates to customers. Learn more at uruit.com. That's uruit.com. We're also brought to you by the Product Managers Association Los Angeles, available at pma.la. They are the largest professional organization for product and designers in LA. With more than 3,000 members from over 500 companies, they host monthly meetups, organize the Product Leader Council, where CPOs and heads of product connect in small 6 to 8 member pods, and have a mentorship program where they connect working product managers with students from underrepresented groups to build a better and more diverse next gen. To learn more about PMA, go to pma.la. To learn more about the mentorship program, go to pma.la/mentorship. Our guest today is Elizabeth Osder. She is the principal at the Osder Group, and her previous roles include product roles at Yahoo and the New York Times. She was a visiting professor at USC, and she held leadership roles at Spin Media, OpenX, and Nexstar Digital. And one interesting fact you might find from her LinkedIn page is one of her early roles was as a photo editor for the Associated Press. Elizabeth, love to hear more about what that was like. AP is one of those news agencies that provides photographs for all the newspapers and agencies throughout the world. That must have been pretty fun to work as a photo editor.
Well, actually it was, and it's a long time ago. So honestly, I've been in this racket a long time. And my time at the AP was actually the first year that they actually had brought in technology and digitized the photo transmission for the Associated Press. So we're rolling back the clock to the early 90s, and I'm sitting at something called the Leaf Desk. And I am networked to the entire world, seeing photos fly across my desk that used to have to be spun around on drums and developed in dark rooms. And
in the early 90s. So, I mean, we absolutely take that for granted now, but in the 90s, being connected to photographs from around the world at that pace was very few people in the world were able to do at that moment.
It was fundamentally a shift in communications. It was hearkening of what would come with the internet, because we didn't really have HTTP yet and that kind of connectivity. So this was a private network. And so one of the things that was going on with me sitting there was like a rocket ship. I was sitting in there feeling the power of what it's like to be interconnected around the world and to move things at the speed of light, and then to have to make decisions very, very quickly, and then also have them be decisions that are not that easy to change. So there was a certain wild west of bringing in new technology to market, as we know in product. But back then, no one had really seen technology like this. So we were just sort of feeling our way in the dark.
That's amazing. So you were one of the first people to be dealing with what would later become internet images but it was a private internetwork. It
Absolutely,
wasn't even a World Wide
absolutely.
Web yet.
No, there wasn't. Unfortunately, that really hadn't happened yet. So, and I was there in the summer when I was getting a master's in photojournalism in Missouri, and I started there as an intern, and I'd work any shift that I could, and just for a chance to be there. And we were in 50 Rockefeller Center in New York City. It
Nice.
was the control center of images and journalism around the world, and the AP had a kind of prominence and power that media doesn't have today. So it was certainly an exciting place to to learn, to you just think about the things that you saw and the decisions you made about where images would go and what people would get to see. And every decision I made, it affected what somebody saw in Kansas or what somebody saw in Kentucky or what somebody saw in Hong Kong or Paris.
That's incredible. So it's almost like, to put it into today's perspective, it's almost hard to conceive. It's as if you were the only person who had access to Google image search, or you had this new images that come in that you would have access to, that came in from around the world, and you were then the repository where newspapers would look to
Absolutely.
have images for their papers.
It's kind of incomprehensible in the world of today, but I think what matters is what kind of grit and experience you get from having been in that situation, and how that sort of begins to lay the foundation of where I would build the roadmap of my career. And
That
so I think that's kind of what's cool about it. I have a million stories that are fun from it. I tell you, I just stop for a second and remember that, one of the things when we get any new technology or in product management, we're building something that has to have an end user is, you kind of have to write the manual. You have to actually document what was going on. And
right,
there was no way of, no one had sort of documented how to do this. You sort of learned how to do it. And this is going to seem really strange, but there
right.
was one switch at the AP, and it was a switch that controlled the satellite imagery. So when the satellite would switch from one hemisphere to the other, and you had to remember to switch the satellite perspective at 3 and like 9 p.m. every day, so you could catch the other side of the world with the satellite images for weather. And no one told you to do that. So I wrote a manual that told interns to turn the switch, because back in those days, things were tight then. The way you learned in a good journalism organization back then, nobody explained things to you. They yelled
Right.
at you. And so it was a very loving but aggressive and highly unforgiving environment. So you didn't want to make those mistakes. So I learned about switching the satellite images. So that was power to control the satellite.
Oh my gosh, we may have to double click into that, because I'm not sure I understand. When you have the satellites, you'll have to they go between the poles based on the hemispheres, based on the time of day and the availability of the line of sight, I guess. Um, and so if you didn't pull the switch, what would happen?
Um, well, somebody wouldn't get their picture, and then you'd get yelled at.
Oh no!
So,
Oh, so
but
one of the people who are receiving the
yeah, somebody would
images.
say like, my image isn't here, so like, where is it? And then it would, it wouldn't like they'd call me, they'd call like the headquarters, and then somebody would come down and say like, why did you pull the switch? And then I'd say like, well, no one told me to turn the switch, and like, where's the manual? There's no manual with this software. So anyway, I just thought that would kind of be a mind blowing and sort of weirdly historic thing. When you talk to me, you're kind of, it's like you're watching an old movie and the screen is sort of crackling with the black and white, and I'm taking you back over time for when it all began.
That is incredible. But I mean, it's part of the thing that's amazing about the LA community, and this technology world we're in. No one studied this stuff. The things that were available to do, they're able to do today, were hardly conceivable back then. And when you could do those things back then, it came at a much more manual process, with much fewer people in the world able to be able to do it. Did that experience you had working in this technology that really wasn't exposed to a lot of folks, did that help influence kind of the next steps in your career? Like, I know you're at the New York Times. Was there a transition
Well,
from
I
what you're doing there to the New York Times?
well, yeah, I mean, I was there, and that was one experience, but actually my experience was really fed by the early internet. So I ended up
Okay.
being involved in putting the very first newspapers on the internet. So I was in getting a graduate
Wow.
degree in photojournalism, and we're also, using early I don't know why I want to tell you all these things, but like we had these digital cameras that held 12 pictures, and the reason why I went to school in Missouri was they had the multi-million-dollar backpack where you could take 12 digital photos and you could learn how to use this technology. So you could take
Wow.
12 digital photos and wear a backpack. And I thought that was cool. So I moved from New York to Missouri. But anyway, what I learned at that point was, that was the time when American Online and a lot of the online services were out there, and
Right.
the web was just getting started. And I decided I was a pretty darn good. I was an okay photographer. I was an excellent editor,
Okay.
but you got to kind of like the road less traveled. And I thought it's very competitive to get those jobs like at the AP and stuff. So there's this new thing happening over here called the internet, and I'm just going to go for it. And so
That's
I just
great.
pivoted my training and decided to go after what was then known as online journalism and what was happening with bringing media online. And I like to say I went from an unemployed photographer to a leading authority for what news would be online very quickly. And I
Wow.
brought the Newhouse newspaper chain online for a while, and I got a job at the New York Times, and I was on the launch team there for their website, which was pretty exciting. One of the first 4 employees, and the rest is sort of history. It's a history of uh, seeing new technology coming, understanding what it could mean to our business and our mission, and then trying to understand how to shape experiences for consumers with that technology that was relevant and accessible, and work and create teams and collaborations to deploy stuff. And from one job to another, that's kind of what I was doing.
That's pretty incredible. And maybe to put in perspective of where we are with technology today, you were at the precipice of a brand new technology that was going to change the game for everything, right? So the beginning of the internet, where you started, there was really like a private internet where there was photos that were coming from around the world and being shared around the world, but in this very private network, proprietary network that you actually were part of the group who were then making it available to everyone via the online newspapers. And all of a sudden, it sounds like it was the dawning of digital media, which I guess now I never put it together, but it probably started in the newspaper business where you had these images that you were projecting and putting on the people's screens, and people would keep coming to a website and getting new content. This is before Facebook, before any sort of social media. So
Yeah, this was back in the 20th century, the last decade of the 20th century, and I think you know people don't have to stop and look at history. I look at history and the history or the herstory or the theirstory that I've been a part of as really just a chance for people to fortify themselves, to understand what they may have to sort through to navigate the next few years. And so, if talking about what I learned in those experiences, I think what's valuable to the product managers and technologists of today is that you will continually be confronted by things that baffle you,
mm-hmm.
and you have to figure out a way to rationalize them in both the business, the technology, and the consumer world, and sort of build that Venn diagram. And that's what's consistent. Over the years, processes have changed. From
Right.
literally a waterfall approach that was minted in mainframes down to the agile kind of a development processes that we have today, and
Yeah.
prototyping and different tools. There's a lot of velocity today, but you still need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it to have any of that velocity add up to anything.
Yeah. Do you have any, and it's impossible not in the zeitgeist of where we're at right now in technology. I mean, it's everywhere and it feels like it's every conversation, but I think it's just kind of where we're feeling right now with the generative AI, the ChatGPT. It feels like we're on the precipice of another generational change with new technology. I'd love to hear if you have any advice for folks out there, as it's just starting up, have as someone who, took the bull from by the horns and approached new technologies throughout your career. Do you have any advice for folks out there who maybe they're starting their career, or maybe they've been in technology but kind of see this generative AI as maybe another industrial revolution that could potentially change how we do software and certainly other aspects of our lives. Do you have any advice for folks who
Well,
and how to navigate these waters?
you know, I'd say, advice is easy to give, and you never really know where it turns out.
Right.
I think I have some thoughts that I reflect on my own career with these things, which is the concept of the unintended consequences of well-intended actions.
Okay. Love it.
And I think that that's what we really need to have in mind when we're thinking about the implementation of these technologies. So
Okay.
in my world, information was in a box, and you had to buy that box and open it up to get information.
Right.
In the world today, information is everywhere, and we're just trying to work on processes and to sort it out. And I think there's a lot of people looking at this. People who love technology and product are looking at it and trying to make a lot of stuff.
Right.
People that are in workflow are trying to find efficiencies with it to improve things.
Right.
Other people are pontificating about it being the end of humanity. College professors are trying to figure out how to get people to write with pencils now so they can actually figure out whether it's somebody's own intellectual creativity.
Huh.
But I think what you have to go down to is, what fundamentally comes down to is on a sort of moral, ethical level, what is right, what is wrong, and how do you construct those decisions so you can use any of these things for terrible malfeasance.
Yeah.
And I think you can be enthusiastic about it and see all these things that you can make, but you have to be in some reality about whether you're truly innovating something, or you're just improving a process, or doing the same thing that every kid who can get a hold of the API for the chat, for ChatGPT is playing with today. And so you have a million people running in the same directions. The real challenge is what's the strategy and what's the purpose of it, and what are you going to apply it to? And hopefully you're applying it to something that has value, which is to create more value in the world than was before, and in such a way that you're not going to lose value. And I don't mean to be all sort of theoretical about it,
Right.
but really there are some awesome opportunities that come with this, and there are some, terrible consequences. And fundamentally, we are going to look different as a society when it's done. Absolutely.
So when you were going through at the beginning of the internet, were any of those? I guess did you follow? It's a hard question because it's easy to give advice. It's hard to do something with it. Is that something that you thought of as the internet was being created, and you were actively considering it? How do I help do this for good? Or
the reason why I always use that as example, and I'm sorry to be a downer and put something so sort of egg-headedly out there, but I didn't think about it. I thought I was helping information be free. I thought I've been working on algorithms and, forms of AI, from, matching systems to, various algorithms. I mean, all of this thing is a continuation of an evolution of technology.
Right.
And there's just such a corpus of data and knowledge out there that, we can mange together intelligent conversation on the fly. So it's just the unintended consequences of well-intended action. I thought that I was Clark Kent working in newspapers to make the world an informed society. And sometimes I look back and I'm like the Joker or a villain. And I unleash this world of, rapid fire misinformation, where bad information is moving faster than good information, and propaganda is using it for alternative purposes. And so, like I said, is I have some really deep thoughts about what I thought was going to be for good that I think has turned for bad, and what I wish I had built into my systems that I built to be more corrective. That velocity and grabbing eyeballs and all the things that we did to build media businesses might somehow go to creating an uninformed society with various social divides that we see much more today.
Oh, interesting. So to piece it together, some of the advice that you would give to folks now that we are in this wild west, and yes, you can really spin out new products very quickly. Your advice to this generation is to be more conscious and conscientious about what you are doing, so that as we're building out the next generation, maybe you can start it with a foundation of more attention to the consequences, rather than just kind of trying to run for eyeballs and try to
I think
collect users.
we've become in software development a lot. It's a world of makers. We all want to make things, and you have to ask yourself, make it to what end? I think sometimes, and is it a unique value proposition? Is it going to have a positive or a negative impact? And you can apply the same technology to potentially sniff out trouble as to create, create trouble.
Yeah.
But that's all in the complex world of the market and what it's going to do with this in product development. What we're going to see right now, without a doubt, is that more things that were considered sacrosanct, like the construction of a narrative, is now going to a machine. But if you've been in my business, 10 years ago, we were using early machine learning insights to write and to put into the workflow of publishing systems to write basic stories like financial stories or sports stories that are very, very structured to automate the creation of those. So the positive side is maybe you're going to free up the intelligent mind to from doing certain rote tasks and allow it to dive deeper into more intelligent tasks. That's my idealism side. And then the negative side is no one's going to know nothing no more.
When electricity goes out, we're just done. You're just sitting in a dark room because you don't know what else to do.
Bad. But I find the curiosity that just my layman friends have about this. Everybody's sort of freaking out about it. The media is creating a bit of a sensation around this right now too.
Right.
It will find its place in existing businesses to bring efficiencies, and it will but it is as you said, in a beautiful summary of my cacophony of crap here for you I think a shift that's similar to the internet, which is we used to do everything to get people's writing out there. Now out there is doing the writing.
That is an amazing place to to wrap up on, or at least move to our last question. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That's a phenomenal take. And really insightful advice. We're product in LA here, and we'd love to ground it in Los Angeles, and love to hear, what's the most LA thing that's happened to you, tech related or not?
Well, I think tech related or not, I'll say, the most LA thing for me is probably John Voight almost running over my foot. But,
all right, that's pretty good.
But what if I've got a second just to say, LA, I'm a New Yorker who came here 20 years ago.
Okay.
And I came kicking and screaming because LA was not my kind of place. And it's been nothing but generous to me. And there weren't nothing going on here with technology back then. When I had a startup from 2008 to 2012 in the big data space, there was no money here. There was nothing.
Yeah. Or developers even, right?
Or developers. So now there's a whole lot of something here, and it's an exciting place to be. And you just never know the experience that's lurking here. And I think it's just a quieter tech scene than Silicon Valley. And there are some real phenomenal innovators that are around here. And I'll leave the last one that's just interesting, which is, a first consulting job I had when I moved here was with something called Applied Semantics, which developed AdSense for Google. And those entrepreneurs were in LA. They built that. They sold it to Google, and they created the economic engine of the internet for the last decade. And those guys are still here doing new startups, staying very much in the fold, and no one really knows that story. But LA has brought real businesses to market that are tested, and a lot of other markets are a little bit in the dream space.
That's amazing. That's funny. I honestly didn't even put that one together. Google is known for Mountain View, California, for Northern California. Very little known that the backbone to making, Google. I maybe said Yahoo, I meant Google. The backbone to Google's monetary engine came from Los Angeles. And I think that's a story that's never told. That's an interesting one. Yeah, we might have to track those folks down for subsequent episodes.
I can help you with that. So,
all right.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Really appreciate having you on. This is terrific. I'd like to thank our sponsors one more time. It's PMALA at pma.la and Uruit, available at uruit.com. I'd like to thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Product in LA.